Good morning, everybody. Really excited to be here for what has already been a great event and a really interesting debate earlier on, actually, a lot of which I agree with. So my name is Brendon O'Reilly. I'm the Group CTO at BAI Communications. We are an infrastructure company that builds networks on behalf of mobile operators around the world, and in recent months have moved into the smart city and neutral, the private network area. What I want to do is talk about the move from Telco to Techco in a slightly different way, which is how can neutral hosts help technological advancements. So from a neutral host point of view, I think one of the challenges with 5G that we have seen since its inception is that there is a huge promise that has been built, the triangle of hope, enhanced mobile broadband, ultra reliable, low latency, and then the promise of massive IoT. Now, I think as an industry, we've all been very, very excited about that, and we're actually really good about getting other industries excited by it. If you think about some of the work that's been done, some of the adverts that's been done by the mobile operators to show the power that 5G can bring, and some of the advancements that they've done in one-off deployments, I think the industry has done a good job of selling 5G. The one area that is a struggle, though, is the densification required is huge, and therefore the expenditure from each of the operators is massive. Neutral hosts are a natural fit between for operators to try and reduce cost. The neutral host model of building once, building right, and allowing everybody to join is one that has been around for nearly 10 years now in the UK. This trend started with the 2012 Olympics, where all the operators came together to build one network for the benefit of UK PLC. And the operators have agreed to the joint operator technical spec, the JOTS, which has helped the industry understand what's required of them. So from that point of view, neutral hosts will absolutely help operators with their capital efficiency. I think the thing that we find as a neutral host operator ourselves is we can do more than that. Open RAN is a big driver of efficiency for the operators over the last 18 months. Lots of interesting talk from all the operators. I was with an operator up until a year ago myself, and therefore I know how excited they are and still are about the opportunity that Open RAN brings, not just in terms of technology, but the efficiency of not having to completely swap out their RAN every few years. I think neutral hosts could provide a really good sandbox for operators to test this out, allowing them to try the technology in high density areas without necessarily impacting the wider customer experience. The challenge that we face is that trust absolutely is the key factor in all of this. And without that trust, we will absolutely struggle as an industry to be able to deliver the densification that's required. And as neutral host operators, it's our job to ensure that we are very open with our customers about what they will be able to see, what they'll be able to do. Because once we build that trust, the operators can source services from neutral host operators that they're not doing now, which will allow us to drive the technology forward at a greater rate by having more sandboxes while still remaining commercially efficient. Now, the open interfaces that we have between the network components in the RAN, that the neutral host could actually manage some of these for the operator, while the operator still has full end-to-end responsibility. And I think that's an interesting concept, because having been in an operator recently, that element of control over your customer experience is so important. You are responsible, you are the brand that is responsible for how your consumer and enterprise customers feel about the service. But by going down this route, the operator themselves starts to transform itself from a traditional telco into a software player, a move that they have long wanted to achieve and have spoken about, and was mentioned in the previous session. And that more software-centric approach allows them the agility and flexibility to be able to concentrate on customer outcomes rather than focus on the infrastructure. So I believe that neutral host has a really great opportunity of unlocking Open RAN for operators. Now, another innovation which we've had in New York is extending outcomes. So in New York, we built the transit system for the NTA, which is the underground subway system there. we've been operational that for a number of years. What we're now doing is working with an operator to expand out their coverage using innovation in deployment. So we have, as you can see, these sort of lollipops, these green, round and yellow circles, which are at the top of the subway entrances. And by extending that coverage, what we're allowing operators to do is efficiently use the RAN that they've already deployed. And we can even, disguise more equipment if that's required for a high capacity area. And expanding out that deployment has really driven an innovation in how Transit Wireless, our company in the US, is delivering street furniture of the future. And there's a real win here, and I believe that collaboration is key, and it has to be a win for everybody. The transit authorities have the opportunity to monetize their infrastructure and real estate assets at a time where ridership is beginning to come back. They've been heavily affected by the pandemic over the last 2 years. MNOs, through deployment innovation, are able to drive a much further footprint of 5G coverage, allowing them to reach more of their customers using infrastructure that they've already deployed. The mobile users get a much better experience, and businesses near the subway system can connect to point of sale systems through 5G or Wi-Fi, and that's actually helping smaller businesses in and around these deployments in the US. So we've talked about technology innovation around Open RAN. We also have innovation in deployment, but the last bit I'd like to touch on is innovation commercially, because I think that commercial innovation will open up a whole new realm to our customers. We recently were awarded the Sunderland Smart City contract. We've been working with Sunderland through an RFP process. And what Sunderland were trying to do was reach the areas that weren't covered by mobile operators traditionally today. So what did that mean for them? They were looking for a private 5G network that they could utilize for the council so that they could have ubiquitous 5G coverage. They were looking to develop a public and private Wi-Fi offering so that it could be used and monetized for business, as well as used for those who were digitally unconnected, the poorest areas, to be able to deliver high quality connectivity to them. A LoRaWAN network across the region to help drive the IoT use cases that we all believe are coming. And that LoRaWAN network deployment will allow the council to utilize its assets, deliver great services for its customers, while also helping to drive a greater understanding of how the city is being used through a comprehensive data and analytics platform. And then lastly, working with the council, we intend to deploy a number of private networks which are being facilitated by the council. So working with enterprise to allow them to hook into this network of networks that we're building, as well as building bespoke networks for them. Now, why is this important? The Sunderland case is one where you had a leadership from the council that truly understood what it was trying to deliver in the greatest sense. They wanted to deliver quality connectivity for all and ensure that nobody and no one was left behind. To do that, they understood that they needed to work with the mobile operators, because the mobile operators will continue to deliver great quality coverage and capacity in and around the Sunderland city. But history has told us that there will be mobile black spots, and the council, forward-looking, decided that wasn't something that they could afford to let happen. So using that as the anchor of how do we ensure that we have ubiquitous coverage, working with the operators, building a private 5G network, ensuring that nobody was left behind from a connectivity point of view, and then building a network that would allow connectivity solutions of the future to be pulled together. That sort of commercial innovation means that we're in a position now where we're able to start delivering true value for the city of Sunderland. But from a telco point of view, it also means we have access to fantastic assets that we can offer to the telco operators at a great price, because obviously we're an operator ourselves. We operate networks. We understand the power and importance of that infrastructure. So for me, the neutral host operators have the opportunity to change the way that telcos look at their networks. We have the ability to provide them with a technological insight that maybe they haven't they haven't found the right place to deploy that yet, and they want to do it in a safe way. We can help them with that. We also have the ability to innovate in the way that deployments happen, so that we can extend their coverage. We can use deployments that they already have with the with virtualized RAN, cloud RAN, etc., to be able to deliver great customer services. And then lastly, because of the way that we're set up and the way that we look at investment, we're able to offer commercial innovation that helps drive benefit for municipalities and councils around the world, as well as benefits for the telcos themselves, by allowing them access to networks and to infrastructure that that will help them deliver for their customers. Just to move on to the IoT piece in Sunderland, we're looking at a number of use cases already using those networks that we've deployed. Waste management, which is one that's been spoken about for a long time, has its environmental monitoring and parking management. But safety and security is an interesting one. You know, again, I come back to trust. It's really important that we have the trust of the council, the trust of the council's customers and custodians, the members of the public. To be able to work to design safety systems that allow the council to get what they need from it, but as well as make the people of Sunderland feel safe. And we're also looking at how we manage street lighting in the area, not just from an energy use point of view, but working with companies like Signify, looking at how we can use those street lighting assets to be able to drive a greater, more ubiquitous connectivity framework for cities around the world. I've done this presentation in what some people might say is slightly the wrong way, but I wanted to talk about the important bits first, and then just touch on BAI. BAI are a company that work in a number of markets across the world. Traditionally, we've worked in transit deployments, so Hong Kong, Toronto, New York, and now London, where we're deploying the cellular system, Wi-Fi system on the underground. We also have a broadcasting business in Australia. And we now have our first foray into smart communities through the work we're doing with Sunderland. But recently we've acquired two companies in mobility in the US and Villicom in Europe that are really leading the way in terms of private networks. And you know, our belief, my true belief, having come from the operator side, is operators will not trust us until they know that we have their best interests at heart. And that means providing the connectivity that they can't or won't provide, as well as helping them drive efficiency in their networks and allowing them to be at the leading edge of technology. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much for having me, and I'll open for questions.
Hello, Brendon. So I think one of the things that I was interested in is it's really good to hear that Sunderland had a clear idea of what it wanted to achieve, because I think often people who run cities or are responsible for specific aspects, it's quite difficult to know what the technology is available and the sort of possible operational business models and stuff. I mean, could you say something about how come they got it right, and if there are indications or learnings for other cities?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that they did really well is they didn't rush. You know, Sunderland as a city have been trying to understand their digital landscape and the digital landscape that's available to them for a number of years. And they were very clear that it would only work if it worked for the whole city. So they were clear that connecting the unconnected was a key requisite. You know, a ubiquitous coverage layer 5G was a prerequisite. But they also understood that that wasn't going to be easy. There's the reason why we do not have ubiquitous coverage in this country. It's a very expensive task. And having come from the operator side, you know, I truly do understand that, and I understand the economics behind it. But what they were clear on was that they were willing to invest in the short to medium term to have long-term benefit for the city. So the investment profile that we have is one jointly between the council and ourselves in investing to deliver benefits for the citizens of Sunderland. And the other thing that they did really well is once they set out what they wanted to do, they stuck to the timelines and didn't deviate. I'm sure most of us have been through RFP experiences where, weeks and months are added to a process. I've never been part of one quite like Sunderland where they did not deviate off their timeline. And the reason they were able to do that is they had brought everybody from the council on a journey. It wasn't the IT department asking for one thing, or it wasn't the social mobility or department. It was the leader of the council and that executive absolutely sure about what the right thing to do for Sunderland was, because they'd taken the time to do the planning. And whatever the outcome of future RFPs, I genuinely think BAI have a lot to offer. But I think understanding the way that Sunderland set themselves up for success is a really important thing for us to learn, not just in the UK, but for municipalities and councils across the globe. Fascinating.
So it's kind of not anything we didn't know, but bizarre is something that's not often acted on.
Absolutely.
It was leadership, great communication, so everybody understands what's going on, and a holistic approach rather than.
Okay. Yeah, I think the approach to technology was an interesting aspect of it as well, because they'd done the research to understand what they wanted, but they were open to feedback during the process as to the best way of delivering the outcome. Sometimes we get fixated on the technology itself. Of course we do, we're technologists, and we get very excited by it. What Sunderland and what Patrick Mellier and Liz St. Louis did really, really well was they were fixated on outcomes. And while they had an understanding of what it might take to deliver those outcomes, they weren't fixated on the technology itself. It was the outcome that it could provide for their citizens and consumers. And that, again, was a very refreshing way of looking at an RFP.
Hallelujah, it is very rare. Okay, we have a question, and actually I'm interested in this as well, from Leon, and he says, what was the business model to pay back the costs? You sort of touched on this, the split between BAI investment and the city's investment in the smart city project, and how long is the payback expected to be in such a project?
Yeah, so it was a mixture, Leon, as I said, between sort of funding from the council themselves and funding from BAI. We actually took a very long-term view. One of the great things about working for BAI is we're actually backed by the Canadian pension plan, and they think about investment in very long term. So, I remember when I joined, I was told that for them, when they talk about a quarter, they mean quarter of a century, not a financial quarter in a year. So actually, we've got an up to 20-year deal with Sunderland, where we're very happy that payback will come somewhere between year 6 and year 12. But the important thing for us was that we are able to continue to work with the council to deliver those services. So it's I'd love to say we know exactly when the payback is going to happen. We do know it is going to come, but it also depends on their funding timelines and the deployments that we can help to deliver for the enterprises. The thing that they've done really well is they have brought businesses in the area on the journey as well. So we're talking to a number of businesses now about private networks for their own use that can be done over and above the work we're doing there. And again, I think that shepherding of everybody's needs without sort of boiling the ocean is a fantastic way to approach something like this. And I feel very lucky that working for a company like BAI, we're able to take that long-term view, and that's actually another thing that really helped. Our long-term view and Sunderland's long-term view meant that we're able to maybe financially engineer this in a way that we wouldn't have been able to if we had a much shorter time horizon.
Yes, if you were being beaten around the head every quarter of a year.
Yes, it's a much more difficult thing to deliver.
Okay,
it's interesting. Long-term infrastructure takes long-term investment, right?
Well, it's what hedge funds and equity funds do for infrastructure, which are considered costs on an operator's balance sheet and an asset on if it's a equity fund. It's bizarre, isn't it? So Ala has said, with the Sunderland project, do you have a strict KPI to meet, certain return on investments through the smart cities services? And are you targeting savings or revenues? Or is it just we'll fund it because it's public good, and if it saves us money, that's great?
No, we absolutely, as great an investor as CPPIB is, we do have a set of KPIs, but also the council do as well. We're working with the council to ensure that they can generate revenue from the infrastructure that we deploy, and we're also looking to help them with services. So one of the projects I mentioned was the waste management piece. We're looking at a smart waste deployment in Sunderland that will help drive down the number of times that public bins need to be emptied, and they're done in a more efficient way. And then on top of that, how can we use IoT sensors to help with traffic management or pollution management? So we're absolutely fixated on the right outcome, but we're fixated on the right outcomes together. Sunderland's outcomes are our outcomes, so we're very much part of the team there. And we're very much focused on delivering the right KPIs for the city. So that there is return on investment for both parties, but helping Sunderland drive revenue and become more efficient is at the heart of what this deployment is.
Okay, and have you got more British or European smart cities in your sights? I know you might well not be able to tell us.
Yeah, I won't mention them. I won't mention them, but yes, we do. I think, you know, we recently set up a business in Italy, which again, from a neutral host point of view, has already gone down that route of neutral hosting. Did it with fibre very early on. I think UK councils, as we come out of the pandemic, are looking for ways to not just be efficient, but really surprise and delight their customers in their council areas. So there are a number that we're looking at, and we also have businesses in the US that are looking at the same. So I don't think Sunderland will be the last that you hear from us in a smart city. Well, I hope not. It's been a lot of fun, and I'd like to do some more.
Okay, and could you talk to us a bit more, please, about the London Underground? Because I don't live in London anymore, but I'm always very cross when I get on there and there's no coverage, because it's a great use of time if you can do stuff while you're active.
Absolutely. The fact that the London Underground has for so long not had any ubiquitous connectivity, obviously there were Wi-Fi in stations for a while, which were provided, and a number of operators joined. We have been working with TfL on the procurement of that for 4 years before it was awarded last June. And we started almost overnight in terms of our deployment. It's a 27-month deployment that we had signed up to. We are in the full throes of that deployment as we speak. So we are delivering coverage to the tunnels, coverage to the stations. We're also building a fibre network across London. Having additional fibre in London is for the benefit of all Londoners, but also to the benefit to the whole of the country, being able to drive more fibre connectivity through the underground. And we're also helping TfL monetize their street furniture assets. One of the things I talked about in the neutral host Open RAN piece, that densification dilemma for operators is one that operators are facing in every major city around the world. That if you look at the top 20 megacities of the world, the ones that aren't facing the dilemma are in the Far East, and that's because they have a approach to infrastructure that's very different to ours. There's sort of no planning permission. Actually, a funny story, I was in Korea a number of years ago and asked about what planning tool they use to be able to plan their network, and I won't say which operator, but they said, we don't have a planning tool. We just look where everybody else is putting a site, and then we build it, because it only takes 8 weeks to build a new site, whether that's a small cell or a macro. We obviously in the UK, in the US, have very strict planning laws, and so what we're doing is we're opening up the 30,000 plus assets that TfL have at street level, so that operators can start to densify their networks for 4G and 5G and provide that ubiquitous coverage. There was a pilot on the underground, which was completed just before the pandemic. So not many people got to use it on the Jubilee line, but we took over the running, or we're taking over the running of that at the end of this month, so tomorrow. Our first sites will go live towards the end of this year. So it's a very exciting time to be part of BAI building this huge infrastructure project in just over 2 years.
I'm also interested to hear in the business model, which Leon sort of touched on with his question. But I mean, are you incredibly flexible in terms of how you approach each customer? And I mean, these are big infrastructure projects. These are not small outings.
No, they're not. And I sort of jokingly mentioned that CPPIB see a quarter as 25 years, but the truth is they do look at long-term investment in a way that others don't. So we do have flexibility. to be able to create the right model for our customers and our customers' customers. It's one of the more interesting aspects of joining a company like BAI. And we were able to leverage that flexibility for Sunderland, but we were also able to leverage it for smaller deployments like Telecom are delivering private networks now, and we're able to financially engineer that so that the customers get the profile they're looking for, but also, obviously there's a return in it for us. I think the most important thing in these relationships, I talked about it, is trust and being open. And if to build trust with your customers, you have to be open with them about what you're trying to get out of it, what they're trying to get out of it. And I think we have a team here in the UK and across the world that's really good at building that trust.
Okay, and I mean, do you just stick to the infrastructure? I mean, or is there any idea? I mean, lots of operators, and especially with 5G, are looking to move up the stack to build additional value around the connectivity. Yeah. I mean, is that your game plan, or does it depend on the particular project?
I think it's project dependent. To give you an example, in Canada, we built a data and analytics platform which allowed the TTC to be able to deliver crowd management solutions during the pandemic. We helped with their ticketless, their paperless ticketing system, and we helped deploy that. So we do a bit of machine learning, data and analytics for them. We do the same in New York. We have a data and analytics business. So we absolutely do look to move up the stack. I think the key is, though, we know what we're really good at. And so I think we're not looking to leapfrog the stack. It's not really where our expertise is. But I think there's a grey area between infrastructure and technology, and we can play in that grey area. But the key is it has to suit our customers. So we have customers who absolutely want to play in the data and analytics piece, and therefore we don't in those areas. So again, we have flexibility about how we pull these proposals together.
And so do the customers keep control and ownership of their own data? You just provide the mechanism, if you like, to apply the analytics? Yeah,
it's different in each scenario. There's some areas where we have direct access to the data, but obviously when we use it, it's anonymized and we follow all of the local data laws. But there are others where the customer themselves keep it and we provide expertise. So we're able to do both.
Okay, so Leon has come back and said that was an interesting comment about the grey area between infrastructure and technology. Could you enlarge a bit on that?
Absolutely. So I think if we look at Sunderland, traditionally we haven't really dealt with the RAN aspect of it, but we are delivering a private 5G network across the city. So where there is a need from a customer to move up into that technology layer, we're very happy to do it. With the data and analytics, our customer in Toronto had a specific need that they couldn't source either themselves or from other areas. So we move into that area to be able to help plug some of the gaps. And that's what I mean about the area. We are not a telco. We will not, every network we build will not be completely managed RAN. And, we will provide services that allow our customers, whether they be network operators, enterprise businesses or councils and municipalities, to deliver on the promise that they make to their customers. And we're happy to fill some of those gaps as and when it meets the needs of that customer. But so we're not here to take over anybody's business. Sorry, Annie, we're not here to take over anybody's business today.
Well, I was just, and do you think, as time goes by, do you envisage greater use of AI? Because that's absolutely kind of what analytics feeds, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think AI and ML are two aspects that a lot of business are grappling with now. I think the key to that is to prove how you can use it yourself. And that's some of the things we're doing we've got a big IT transformation going on at BAI at the moment. And that how we use AI and ML ourselves to be able to demonstrate to our customers some of the benefits is one of the things we're looking at now. I do see that increasing as we go over time, and you've seen it from some of the operators around the world now. There are small forays into that, but if you're running these big infrastructure projects, being able to identify key issues and be preemptive is absolutely key to being able to run a successful infrastructure project and deliver the service that our customers are looking for. Our customers are looking for 99.9 availability, and they want to deliver a great service. To do that, you have to really leverage technology to its greatest use.
Brendon, thank you so much. Really interesting session. We hope you'll come back as a speaker at a future event.
No, thank you for having me.